In chapter 7, this is titled Love Can Conquer Fear. We see that Matangini is obviously horrified to hear this conversation between her husband and the robbers. She knows very well that Rajmohan is an unscrupulous person and a brute, and now a new and terrible light has been thrown on his life and character now that he has become involved with the robbers' gang and his readiness to help them of his own benefactor's house for a price. But she is a dutiful wife. She cannot tear herself away from such a man, though he is of a brutal temper, and she realizes that she is forever cursed. But she does not sit and think of her own misfortunes. She is now concerned with the impending harm to her beloved sister and her large-hearted brother-in-law. So, as she knows that no one in the family would believe that Rajmohan was behind the robbery, and if he comes to know, that is, Rajmohan comes to know that she has heard anything about the plot, he would of course kill her. So Matangini deliberates on the course of action she should take to warn Madhav of the plot against him. She first thinks of stealing away from her chamber, going to Konok's house, waking her up and sending her best friend to Madhav's house with as much information as to warn Madhav without endangering Rajmohan. But soon she realizes that this is not possible. She would not be able to awaken Konok without awakening Konok's mother also. And obviously the urgency of the situation cannot be conveyed to them. So at last, after much thinking, Matangini decides to go to Madhav's house by herself at such an hour. So Matangini embarks on a midnight adventure, and she knows the danger that lies ahead on the dark night. And of course, she is superstitious that some evil spirits might lurk at that time, but she nevertheless decides to leave her home, and she wraps herself in a piece of coarse bedcloth from head to foot, gently opens the door of her chamber and sets out after bolting it. Once she is almost detected, but she hides herself behind a thicket. Then the robbers move away and she continues on her journey. She arrives at her sister's house safely and makes her way through the side entrance. The household is asleep. She succeeds in rousing the maidservant Koruna, who is of course extremely surprised to see her at that late hour. Matangini tells her that she urgently needs to see her sister, and she proceeds to her sister's apartment upstairs. So this chapter, which is titled Love Conquers Fear, is the appropriate title for this chapter for a timid and docile housewife like Matangini feels such an overpowering love for her sister Hemangini that she decides to go alone to the latter's house in the dead of night through a wild and jungly path in order to warn her and her husband Madhav of the danger that is lying ahead for them. So no fear of the evil spirits haunting the dark forest or that of coming across the robbers, including her husband, can determine the brave heart Matangini from going to warn her sister Hemangini and Madhav of the robbers' plan to rob them that night. So obviously we see a great transformation coming over Matangini here, and desperation drives her to go to her sister's house at that hour, and she understands that it is only she who would be able to warn them. No one else can do that. In chapter 8, which is titled Forewarned and Forearmed, we see that how Matangini meets her sister and Madhav, and after being warned, Madhav collects his servants and succeeds in driving away the dacoits. And he then returns to the inner apartments to thank the brave woman who had saved him from imminent danger. Now here obviously Matangini, as we have seen, she braves the dangers of the jungle on the dark night to warn her sister and brother-in-law of the imminent danger to their lives and property. Love for them overcomes her fear, and she eventually succeeds in thwarting the attempts of her husband and his accomplices to rob Madhav. So obviously Matangini is successful in her mission, and she is happy that in spite of danger to herself, she has succeeded in completing her job. And at first she is hesitant, but ultimately she overcomes her shyness and meets Madhav and tells him about everything. And Madhav is perplexed at first, but soon he goes out and he rouses his men to face the dacoits. And Matangini also informs him that he should safeguard his uncle's will that he has kept in an ivory box. And of course she forbids Madhav not to speak of her involvement in this matter because her life depends on it. So obviously they keep mum on that account, on that matter, and her involvement is not revealed.